Well, first of all, it's nice to see your presence here, even though you guys are back in the studio.
Yeah,
it's
nice
to see you. Nice to see you guys here in Houston. It just comes down to this. We talk all the time in our draft preparation about we're a team that believes in assessing value, and then we allow our draft board to dictate what happens. Now, if you can hit on a player at a particular position at a particular value of need, then it's a home run. But anytime we're sitting there and we've got a player that has value, that we're going to take him regardless of position. And certainly a guy like, Whitney, he was a guy that we targeted, at least I targeted early on in the process as a guy that I wanted. I never thought we would have an opportunity to get him. But when he's sitting there at 26, because we had such value on him, you take him.
Texans general manager Rick Smith with us here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio. And, you come into this training camp, and probably for the first time since maybe year 1 and 2 of the franchise, the defense seems to be ahead of the offense. Obviously, the last couple of years you've been working on that. Now you've got a really good offense and a really good defense. Normally teams have one or the other.
Yeah, and we're fortunate that way because, we played pretty salty last year on defense, and I think we've got a chance to be better. You add a guy like Whitney to that mix, and we've got a group of guys that play extremely hard, and they understand what Wade and the coaches want them to do. They had some success early on executing that last year, and you guys know when you have success, it breeds confidence. When you have more confidence, it's a cyclical cycle, where all of a sudden, if you're playing hard and you're playing fast and you have confidence, you play better and you make more plays and you continue to grow and develop, and that's what's happening on the defensive side of the ball for us.
Hey, Rick Smith, Dad Wynn here.
Dad, how are you, my
friend?
I'm
doing good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We met with Mr. McNair, Coach Gary Kubiak, and they were preaching was character.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that you guys drafted DeVere Posey in the third. The situation that happened in Ohio State, could you kind of talk about the process that you went through and how, the steps that you take for the question mark that he had?
Sure. And I think when you talk about character, first of all, we put a high emphasis on that, because I think players that are, when you talk about what character is, I think that is best reflected in terms of discipline. And so we want guys that are disciplined, that have the discipline to make good decisions on and off the field, because more often than not, when the pressure's on in the fourth quarter and you need a guy to go execute, guys with discipline more often than not are gonna make those plays. And so that's from a character standpoint how it translates on the field for us. Specifically as it relates to DeVere, one of the things that we don't do is we're not punitive if a guy makes a mistake. Okay, so we don't want perfect people because there's no such thing. But if a guy makes a mistake, and we think that is something that is not he's not a repeat offender. He doesn't continually make mistakes or doesn't continually to do something that goes against what we believe in. We're okay with a guy making a mistake, and we'll give a guy a second chance. And all of our research on DeVere indicated that he got caught up in a bad situation when he was young, but he managed it and handled it the best way that he could. And he is a good guy. He's a good man. He works hard. He wants to be good, and he's committed to doing that. And we felt very comfortable adding him to our locker room.
Rick Smith, the general manager of the Houston Texans, joining us right here on Ari and Minix, 1250 ESPN San Antonio. Rick, you came in 2006, and you brought Gary Kubiak to be the head coach of this football team. And there was a period there, 2009, 2010, where I'm sure the media fan base felt like he wasn't the guy. How did you know that he was the guy through some of those tough times that you guys dealt with as an organization?
Well, first of all, just chronologically speaking, Gary was here first, and then I came on in June. And so Mr. McNair, I think, did an outstanding job. Obviously, I'm a little biased in that thought process, but we never wavered on our belief in our ability to get the job done, or in our ability to put a program in place that would give us a chance to succeed. And that's what we've got here. We've got some real synergy happening between our coaches and our scouts. Our scouts know the kind of players that fit our system, and we've done a good job of educating them about the kind of players that fit into the schemes. And then then we've got a group of coaches that are doing an excellent job of teaching and developing players. And I think that's what's giving us a chance to continue to grow this football team in a way that's giving us some success on the field.
And, of course, now, Rick Smith, the idea is to keep building, try to keep it together, and that creates all kinds of headaches as you deal with the salary cap. The team announced today that you signed Dwayne Brown, left tackle, long-term deal. I know the team doesn't announce specifics, but it's being reported a 6-year, $53 million deal, 22 guaranteed. You still have Schaub and Barwin going into the final year of their contract. We're in training camp. Do you start talking to Schaub now? Do you wait him, let him play out the season? How does that process work?
Well, you're right. And that's the challenge of the NFL today. You've got to develop and define who your core group of players, what that group looks like and who's in that group, and then try to keep those players long term and then continue to draft well. And that's our formula. That's how we're trying to get it accomplished. And, we've made it clear that it's our intent to make sure that we keep our good players under contract. You can't keep them all. And if we do a good enough job in our drafting process and in our player evaluation and acquisition, we're not going to be able to keep them all. And so, but we're diligent about that, and we've talked about the fact that we will negotiate up until the regular season. But it's our belief that once the season starts, the goal and the focus ought to be unified, and so there aren't any negotiations at that point. Everybody's focused on football and performing to the best of their abilities. And so we've got a couple more weeks before that happens, and we've got several guys that are important pieces of our team that are entering into the last year of their deals. It's certainly not a situation where we're sitting here, we're going to lose somebody if we don't get them signed by September. But we'll keep identifying those guys and try to work to get some deals done. And if we're fortunate enough to do so, we will. And if not, we'll go into the season with full guns ablaze and ready to compete for a championship.
Clearly one of the best in the business, Rick Smith, general manager of the Houston Texans. Before we let you go, kind of dovetailing on that conversation, you look back at some of the teams that have won Super Bowls, Rick, and it's no coincidence that they're not doing it through free agency and through the trade. You're able to plug holes that way, but they're doing it by drafting players, bringing them up through their system, and then keeping them there. How important, when you look at some of the guys you drafted that became immediate contributors for you, and you look at Brooks Reed and J.J. Watt last year and guys before that, how important is that, and how big is signing Dwayne Brown and bringing some of these other guys back long term?
Well, it's critically important, and you make all the good points. I mean, and you think back to Dwayne in 2008 when we took him. The left tackle position plagued this franchise, and so he came in and started right away, and he is a young left tackle that we think has the ability to ascend into one of the better left tackles in the game. He's got the determination. He's got the commitment to being good. He's got the physical ability. And so we think it's important. We've laid a foundation, we think, here for sustained success like we talked about before. And we think that this is just another step into that process of continuing to keep those good young players, that have, given us a chance to be good.
Rick Smith, general manager of the Houston Texans. I know you got family in San Antonio that keeps tabs. And I guess I've known you for a long time. Most GMs, they start looking old after about 6 months on the job. You're not. How do you manage to stay looking so young?
A lot of work, brother.
I hear you. Appreciate you taking some time with us today.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Good stuff. Rick Smith, the general manager of the Houston Texans, joining us here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio.